Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ramis Gilada. For some of you who may not know me, I would like very quickly to just go over, introduce yourself so we feel like we're one team here. Just tell me who you are and if you're anything else where you're studying or anything, just to get familiar with your background.
Ben Risk, and I'm just still in high school here with my dad.
I'm Katrina. I go to UNT. I'm a biology major.
Wow.
I'm Suzette, one of the servants here. This is my daughter.
Suzette, can you step out, please?
I'm Sam. I'm a little hygienist and I'm her friend.
Hi, I'm Raymond.
Raymond, the one and only, right?
Oh, there's only one Raymond.
Raymond is known coast to coast.
Oh, Lord, here we go.
Nadir, one of the servants.
Sam, one of the servants.
You don't have to talk, everybody knows who you are.
But I'll introduce him actually. You introduce himself. Ben Marcus High School, right?
Dina, everybody knows
He's
who
the
you are.
version of Mario.
Hi, I'm Sandra, currently working,
Okay,
going back to school in August for master's, so
good.
hopefully.
Miriam, I'm new here from San Antonio and I go to UNC for grad school.
Mariam is not new, don't listen to her.
Yeah, I used to live here.
She used to be with us in San Antonio Church when we started.
Yeah.
She was running around causing all kinds of trouble, but that's okay.
Hi, I'm Provost of CMU Medical University.
Thomas, give him this chair one.
So you're gonna be. So what is that? Are you gonna be walking, sitting? Once you keep that one, you're gonna go.
I'll rotate him for you.
So today I was, somebody I promised last time that we should talk about some kind of dogma, some kind of thing to do with our church, the Coptic Church. And once you talk about the Coptic Church and dogma, you're looking at 2,000 years history, and the sky's the limit. But then I realized, you know what? Let's just stick to tradition. Let's just stick to what the Holy Week, the Lent is all about. And as you know today, what is the Bible on today? The Samaritan Woman. It is very hard to skip that. It's very hard to when it's the time to talk about this situation here, or this, it's not a miracle. It's a discussion that took place between what they call a Samaritan woman that met her Messiah. That's huge, right? Imagine if each and every one of us had the opportunity to have that kind of one-on-one interaction with the Lord, just like the Samaritan woman was. The fascinating thing about this story that she was the most unknown, regular, and non-consequential person at that time. Probably who cares who she is and what level. She was not rich, she was not educated, she was really pretty much bottom line citizen. Add to that she was not Jewish, a Jewish person, she was a Samaritan person. Some of you may know the history of the Samaritan and the Jews. And basically, I'm going to go over it very quickly. The people of Israel, as you remember, were divided at the time after King David died and King Solomon died. There were some irreconcilable differences between the people. So what happened is, you remember the division that took place between the kings of Israel, between Judea and the Yehuda, Israel. And at that time, but whatever happened, the advice that was given to the son of Solomon, he was given the wrong advice. So he basically started putting some kind of a division between the Jews. And eventually what happened is the Jews divided into two kingdoms. One became basically, and I'm going to read you this in a way, the history of this division within the nation of Israel goes back all the way to the days of King Solomon, around 931 BC. When God became angry with the sins of Solomon, And we know what Solomon did, right? He started going after strange other women and started basically the most wise man on earth. And that really is very intriguing. Somehow chose to deviate away from the things of the Lord. That's a lecture by itself. How could Solomon do something like that? And revealed his intention to tear down the kingdom of Israel away from him. The mighty kingdom of Israel under Solomon was then divided after his death into a southern kingdom, Judea, under Solomon's son Rahbaam, and a northern kingdom, Israel, under Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who had been in Egypt fleeing away from King Solomon, and returned after the death of Solomon. So what happened is the southern kingdom was composed of two tribes, Israel, which is Judea and Benjamin, and was centered in Jerusalem and comprised mainly of Jews. The northern kingdom was composed of the other 10 tribes. Bear with me here, it's important, of Israel, and was centered in the Shechem of Samaria. Shechem, they called of Samaria, as was comprised. It was composed of Jews who mingled with foreign nations and came to be known as Samaritans. So Samaritans are Jews who were not strictly wanted to maintain the Jewish blood, so they start mixing with other people. Both people believe that God requires.
I'm sorry. Not that it matters, but I thought the difference was that the northern kingdom was conquered. Well, both kingdoms got conquered, but the issue was that the northern kingdom decided that they weren't going to maintain the Jewish traditions, and so they started mingling with other nations, and they became it. But it wasn't like
Correct. It happens over time.
right, but it happened due to the conquest. So they were taken over, and then they started mingling with their kingdom.
And remember, the conquest did not take place other than God permitting it. When they reached a point where it was irreconcilable difference between them and God.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I'll just give you the big picture here. Most people believe that God required them to choose a special place for worship. And that a Messiah called Christ was coming to deliver them at one point in time. The Jews chose the Temple Mount in Jerusalem and the Temple of Solomon, and the Samaritans chose Mount Gerizim in Samaria, Jesus. Having this background, you go back and look at the story of the woman in Samaria. That's how the discussion started. What was her biggest problem with Jesus? Is that he's a Jew speaking to a Samaritan woman. It's nothing because a man speaking to a woman. It has nothing to do with that. These people did not communicate with each other. And her problem was, how are you all of a sudden breaking this barrier? Why? And you know that we believe, and if you look at the discussions, I don't know if you guys read, I'm going to leave you, I'll let you, you can go read that on your own time. One of the discussions between her and Jesus is, you believe that we worship at the Mount Temple, the Temple Mount, and we say we're going to worship on this mount. And Jesus Christ, what did Jesus Christ do here? Did he care about history? He accounted for history, but he did not ignore history. And then in his discussion, he basically did something historical. He broke the barrier. Tell her, forget about what the Jews tell you. Forget about what you the Samaritans, believe. The Christ that is, and then she said something very interesting. They say, forget about all that. There's the day that will come, and I think if we pull this is very important. It's very critical here. It says what Christ said, and I'm going to read it. If you know the gift of God and who it is who says to you, give me a drink, you would have asked me and he would have given you living water. What is Christ doing here?
It's not very good. This water doesn't really mean anything. You gotta live more.
Correct. Christ is trying to elevate her from this historical problem that they got themselves entangled, us versus them, just like what's happening in the Middle East today. Muslims versus Arabs, Christians versus this, and we are in Republicans against Democrats. We are entangling ourselves in all kinds of issues in our lives, something that we have to be aware of, and forgetting the big picture. As a nation, for example, in America today, that's exactly where we are. We are forgetting about the big picture, and we're just like what's happening in the Middle East for the last 2,000 years. Muslims versus Christians, Muslims against Jews. and the whole region is destroyed. You know, Shiite against Sunni, ISIS against Al Qaeda. And this is what we are very good at: is entangling ourselves into endless fighting and endless discussion of forgetting the big picture. The sad thing about it, as I mentioned to you earlier, our nation is becoming one of those examples of getting entangled in politics. But what is Christ telling us? You guys are missing the point. You're missing the big picture. That's the whole lesson that came out of the Samaritan woman. You are missing the point. I'm not here to entangle with your historical events. You can go read it in the Bible. You can go do your own research. You can go read it in the Torah. But that's not me. She said, what are you doing there here? Well, I'm here to give you the water, the living water. What are you talking about? What do you mean living water? And I'm not going to go over what she said, but I'm going to go over what Christ said. Whoever drinks of this water will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. Now imagine you're talking to someone at school and he tells you things like that. So what is he talking about? This guy must be on drugs. You know, what do you mean never thirst? But the water that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. The woman said to him, Sir, give me this water that I may not thirst, nor come here to draw. So what is this woman's problem? She is still entangled in trying to make logic out of this man telling her that whoever drinks from this water lives forever. She is still, remember, she is still, at her level. She's still thinking about the world, how to save herself from coming and going and doing real work. Christ is trying to lift her up. Obviously, she didn't get the point. So what did he do next? What did he do next? He had to do something to pierce into her heart. This time, he's going to make her really confused.
Go invite your husband. Yeah, she got convicted.
Now he's getting personal.
Yeah.
Go invite your husband and come here. Yeah. That's none of your business. Well, why do I have to tell you where my husband is? So in a nice way, she said, I have no husband. So what is that supposed to mean? You know how women are, they don't want you to get involved in personal questions. I don't blame them. I don't blame her. So Jesus told him, no, you have one. Right. You have said, well, you have no husband. For you have 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have, is not your husband in that. Isn't that the truth? That's it. He blew her off the water. She just blew off. In today's world, yes, sir.
I just want to comment on that because that action itself, which is really amazing.
Yeah.
How people handle the situation, because again, what she said, if it happened today and we're at work, you might have someone say, "Hey, you're lying," which is one way of addressing it. Mm-hmm. But again, look at the way Jesus addressed it, saying, "Hey, you know what? You said the truth." But like again, that's a way of teaching us how to be kind to everyone, even though sometimes they might do something wrong to us, or they might do something wrong as a general, but you don't know what's behind it. Again, just be kind to people, and being kind, being honest is, looking at the half full of the cup is basically the way you can preach without even preaching by itself.
Excellent point. Correct me if I'm wrong, what you're trying to say, there's so many ways you can attract people to Christ, and the number one way is to be nice.
Yes.
It's like evangelism. You have to be careful how to penetrate the heart of weak people, sinful people. Mm-hmm. This woman must have been there's no way she was a happy person knowing the kind of life she's living. Nobody's happy by having 5 husbands. You cannot even be happy with having 1 husband, right? So now you're having 5 of them. Are you serious?
You're getting personal.
Is this live?
It's all live.
Okay.
So the way he approaches it is absolutely professional, absolutely noble. I mean, it's just amazing the way you look at the Lord handling a stranger like that. And he, as I said, she just lost it. At that point, she said, she didn't know what to respond. Again, she's trying to be protective. Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. It's a very smart woman, right? And then she started getting to him on the discussions on Jerusalem and all these things. He came back. I don't want to talk history. Let's talk. Let's keep talking. What is the goal of this discussion? What was Christ trying to achieve here, ladies? What was Christ trying to achieve with this woman? I'm going to test you in front of your mother.
I think he was just trying to get her to realize that there's like more than the history between like the Jews and the Samaritans, and then like there's something bigger, like there is God and there is salvation. Like I think he was trying to get her to realize her salvation and that she's not condemned by God.
Okay, so she's not condemned.
Yeah, by God.
So basically, he's trying to save her.
Yeah.
Agree? That's it. That's it. That was the end of discussion. It's not a history lesson. He is not asking her to solve the problems of the world. He's just trying to. He liked her. We don't know why. He wants to be one of those people that will be saved. Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when none of you will neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem, so don't worry about this mountain, nor in Jerusalem will worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. Very good point. Actually, we are no different. There's nothing new here. We worship what we do not know. Trust us. Believe me. We are worshiping Christ, but we really don't know. I'm not admitting, I personally don't. I did a lot of studying. Some of you know that I, authored a book about him and all that. But I still don't know him. I'm still at a loss. Sometimes he comes to me and a situation in life, and I feel like as if I've never been to church before. I don't know how to handle it. We're all like that. We're no match for him. But go ahead.
I was just want to also add about this part about the discussion that she was going like historically, and she's asking about details,
Yeah.
and he's basically going for her heart. A lot of time we get involved in a lot of
Semantics.
in details and
Yeah.
semantics and technicalities and words, and we might lose people based on a difference in a word or two.
Correct.
But again, the most important thing is actually gaining someone's heart versus then the technicality, because that's what Jesus did too. Like he did not go against the technicality of where you're gonna worship here or there, or the Jews are right, or the Samaritan, because basically she was debating who's right. Like, hey, you say there, we say there, who's right?
Just let me correct. He really penetrated her heart.
Yeah.
He told her everything about her. That's good. I bet. Any one of us, if somebody walks in from nowhere and tells you who you are, who your wife is, who your kids are, when did you graduate from, aren't you going to be scared?
Yeah.
First of all, I'm going to think the FBI is spying.
They're on you for a while.
Yeah, or somebody. But my point is, at that time, she's already scared. I mean, he is already scared the heck out of her. Now she's trying to stand on her feet and understand who is this person, where he's coming from, and he's giving her an answer.
I think I'm with Sam, معلش, without. I think I'm with Sam is sometimes our response, like we can be sitting in a sermon or listening to something, and God come and actually get our attention, like Christ got her attention.
Yeah.
And instead of concentrating on this opportunity to actually get to know him personally, we try to deflect.
That's a good point. I agree.
And deflect and start to think about semantics and
Or missed the opportunity.
And I think that's what she was trying to do. She already figured out that she told him that I perceive that you're a prophet. And then instead of, okay, you're a prophet, give me something to help me to benefit.
Yeah.
And instead of doing that, she deflected the
No,
conversation and started to go into arguments. You guys say this and we say that, who's right, who's wrong.
I'm sorry, but I don't see it that way. Just bear with me. I don't see it. Because Christ is not wasting his time. He's
trying.
Yeah.
Responding
No,
to
no,
how
no.
she's reacting.
He's going to get
I
something
think
out of it.
I understand.
Yeah.
He's so focused on her and her salvation, but she is trying to waste the opportunity by getting into these arguments that it really doesn't touch her.
Doesn't happen.
And that's what we do a lot of times. Is we listen to a sermon and something really touches our hearts, and instead of concentrating on what I learned from this, how Christ is really touching me, I started to maybe think, oh, who this guy from, or who is a good priest, or what did he believe, or whatever, and we waste the opportunity. But Christ was so razor focused on her heart that he will not get with her into this who's right, who's wrong. He just brushes off her argument and saying, believe me, it's not here or there. The worshiper, the true worshiper.
Anybody has anything to add to that?
That's how I take it.
Yeah,
I-
and I think, I was just gonna add on what Sam said, because I don't think she was intentionally trying to waste the opportunity. She basically saw a lot of people before Jesus talk to her, and again, most of the people, if you go to a lecture and you go to another lecture, you kind of know the pattern of that.
Correct.
And you kind of build up, okay, so he gonna start the lecture, he gonna have a PowerPoint. So you build up a pattern. So she's treating Jesus with a pattern. She dealt with all the people who came before him, saying, and again, most of the people, whenever they talk to people, if I'm talking to you, I'm trying to convince you with my point, so basically I'll tell you who's right and who's wrong. So she's basically directing a question for him, which one you think is right. And again, that's the normal pattern of any argument or conversation. But again, it just goes back to the bottom of sometimes arguing is not the way of talking about God. Sometimes just being kind, just being straightforward to your heart, just being honest with you and saying, hey, you know what? And again, we might disagree on points even in the Catholic Church. Like I might disagree on something, and I see it in a personal way. You see it the other way. And at the end of the day, even we disagree with some stuff. The love is basically the shortest way to have someone win someone. Basically.
But just don't forget the big picture here is this is not a common discussion between two human beings. This is a discussion between a human being and his creator, or his and her creator. That's a whole different discussion between a sermon that you hear from some other human being or from another friend. I'm just trying to bring Christ is one level that is unequal. And when you have a discussion at that level, you're never going to equal that. No human being is going to equal that, no matter how much they talk to you. Because he is speaking from power. He is speaking from absolute knowledge. I may be trying to convince you one way or another, but that's fine. But going back to the class again.
Yeah, I wanted to add on this actually to your point before we move on, because I was listening to once a sermon from that was not
Yes.
about this topic, and he stopped at this same point like you did, and he said that Samaritan woman, she must have been Coptic, because because Christ is speaking to her about the state of her heart, and she starts talking about not just the rituals.
Exactly.
And so many us as Copts, we have all these encounters with Christ himself, and we focus on, I stand here and I sit here and I turn around and I do 3 crosses and where's the state of my heart? And so he said, oh, she must have been Coptic. So because we can do that, we can think that we're religious, we're caught in those things. Not that those things aren't important, but it's the meaning behind them and the state of your heart and your relationship with God and the spiritual aspect more so than the religious
Exactly
rituals.
right. So she did such a good job, you're going to take over. No, she's ahead of me now. So basically you nailed it. And that was my next point. We do it all the time. We and not Coptic people, we Christians do it all the time. We don't have to be Samaritans. We don't have to be Jewish or whatever. We argue it all the time, looking for a way out from when Christ has a one-on-one discussion with you, whether it's in the car, whether it's in your college room, whether it's in your office, whether you're walking your dog or whatever, you look for a way to deflect this whole thing. We do it. We are baptized. We are everything. We go to the church. We have Holy Communion. We do it. We are fasting 40 days and 40 nights. And we are back to here to the Samaritan Woman situation. I call it the Samaritan Woman syndrome. So going back to these iPhones, they lock you off. I need to get it out. Okay. So Let's just go back here. But the hour is coming, and now is when the true worshippers will worship the Father. The key thing, he said, God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. And what a problem for us, truth. Biggest thing that we're trying to do is avoid the truth. The truth about us, ourselves. The truth about our lack of faith. Our love of the world. We all love the world. Don't make no mistake. Love high standard of living, education, big cars. This is our dilemma. We are all in it. We are struggling with these things. Don't ever think you're liberated from these things. There is a fight there, a war that must be won. And the Lord eventually, she told him, and I congratulate her for that. I really do. I know that the Messiah is coming. That to me is someone who is knowledgeable person. Is not an ignorant person. And when he comes, he will tell us everything, all things. Are you the one? Yes. Jesus told her, I who speak to you am he. No one has the power to speak like that. No human being can say, I am he. Who are you? Only Christ, only God has that kind of power. When was the last time God spoke with such power? Somebody remembers, I'll congratulate you for this. There was a moment when something happened between a very, very well-known person talking to God, just like the Samaritan woman, and he gave that person, him, the same answer. Moses. انت تقعد ساكت.
Sorry.
احنا بنتكلم على not the professor.
No,
انت هنا
I am
teachers
who
are
I
not
am.
allowed to answer. Sorry. So, what did Moses, okay, for everyone else, what did Moses ask God and what did God tell him? This is a test for the youth of this class.
Not for the youth. He said, servant, you
Not the
can't.
teachers. Teachers are not allowed to attend anymore. What did Moses, guys who read the Bible, cheat?
Oh,
you
you cheat? It's a call, friend.
I'm telling you,
Phone a
something.
friend. I want
If
to
you
phone
want
a
to cheat,
friend.
What is
it's
that
too
when
late.
you use
Phone a
that?
servant.
When you use that card? You know, it's like,
There was a discussion that there's a movie. Did you guys see the
Lifeline.
movie, the Ten
when
Commandments?
he said, I am.
I'm just
who I am.
making it easier.
Yeah.
In the Ten Commandments, Moses faced God and told him something, and God responded in a certain way. When he told him, you go speak to Pharaoh. Here is the most powerful man on the face of this planet. Think of him, maybe I'm not going to compare him to anybody because I don't want to get politically issued. But think of him as somebody here who's very, very powerful, and this guy walks on the street, we're going to talk to him. So he asked him, if he tells me who sent you, what would I tell him? What did he tell him?
I am.
I am.
Who I am.
Who I am.
Only God can speak like that. And he did it again. With the Samaritan woman. You noticed? People tell you, prove to me Jesus Christ is God. Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
I who speak to you am him. Am he.
Yeah.
This is not real good English, really, in my opinion. But who cares? Do you
Translation.
think Christ is going to care?
Translation.
So this is the bottom line, right? But it is what it is, all right? So this is the bottom line. And what did the woman do after that? What was her response?
She left her pot.
She's such
She
a smart
ran.
woman. I congratulate her. She got the message and she ran for her life.
Yeah.
So my point to you is this. Don't play games with Christ. Be honest. Don't try to dance around issues. In life, either you make it. I'm going to be honest with you here. I'm saying this to myself. I say it to my kids. I say it to everyone. You have to take Jesus Christ serious. You don't mess with him. Sorry, I'm Mahesh. He's not another bishop or a pope or a priest or a Sunday school teacher. We all make mistakes, believe it or not. Even Pope Shenouda admits that he makes mistakes. But this Christ does not make mistakes. He does not. He said, who can hold a sin against me? So there's no point in dancing around the issues. You listen to his commandments, just like the Samaritan woman finally got the message. And be very careful. Be listening to what he's trying to tell you, because he's trying to talk to you. Nothing is impossible for him. He will lead you the way. He will answer all your questions. If you have a trouble, he will get there. Nothing is impossible for him. So that's a given. The problem is not nothing is impossible with him. The problem is you really don't believe it. That's what the problem is. Nothing is wrong with his commandments. You just don't want to deal with it. Nothing that he can be blamed for. You cannot blame him, all right? There's nothing you can do, okay? But at the end of the day, you don't want to cross that bridge. So we are back to the same thing that he told Adam and Eve. Nothing have changed. Either you do this or you don't do it. You eat from this tree or you don't eat from it. Christ didn't change that. He didn't come and say, oh, by the way, I'm sorry for what I did to Adam and Eve. No. He said, nothing have changed. I'm giving you a second chance. You don't have to worry about paying for your sins. And by the way, we're going to celebrate that in about 4 weeks. You don't have to worry about any of these things that you all worry about. Just worry about making the right choice. Do you really love me? And if you do, you follow my commandments. It's that simple. He was a very straightforward discussion with the Samaritan woman. He was not Christ, the way he talked to the Samaritan woman, what does that tell you? He came to her level. He didn't say, well, if this woman has a PhD, yeah, I can talk to him then. Or if this woman has some kind of absolute professor knowledge, then she's fit for me to talk to her. No, he didn't ask any of that. We live at times, my brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, we live at times that is really, really scary. The things we see nowadays, the things we see in the social media, the things that that's happening in the world around us. It's a big sign. And we know that every day we live in it gets us one closer day to Judgment Day. And don't ever think that there is no such a day. Because if you don't believe that there is such a day, you will live like the world. You will be no different like the other 90% of the world who do not think there is a Judgment Day. But we, as children of St. Mark, children of the Coptic Church, we believe that. When we are, honestly, we do. And it should never cross our mind that it's not true. Because this means that we let the world inflict us and confuse us. And I know there's a lot of watershed moments going on in the world today. And I just want to say a few things for the men in this group. We hear a lot of things about this movement that's going on. If you notice from the way Christ talked to this woman, not a single moment in the history of Christ coming down to the world, he has ever talked to a woman in a very rude way. Never ever he was hurt a feeling of the female gender among us. He was very tough with men. Mm-hmm. He handled them very roughly, the Jewish leadership, but he was very respectful. There is a moment there when the disciples came in and they found him alone with a woman speaking in a well, and they marveled. You know what the word marvel means? Shocked. They were shocked that a man is speaking to a woman by herself. You think Christ knew that? Of course he knew that. Do you know he knew that they're going to be shocked? Of course he knew that. My point is, you have to realize that we live in a world where you have to respect the other person. We have to deal with them with a lot of respect. Women are fascinating beings, and that's why I'm married to one of them. But the key word here is one. I didn't hear you say that. The key word here is one. There's no point in jumping from one fascinating person to another fascinating person. Also, women are the property of God. They are never the property of man. You trespass them, you trespass him, and he will seek you to the center of the earth. There is no escape. So just remember that. And he has the right to deal and talk to them at any time he wants. But you're not Christ. So you have, I like the Billy Graham rule, which is now called the Mike Pence rule, which you know what it is. You never put yourself in a compromising situation where you can be misunderstood. And I know the ladies are excellent in taking care of that part, that side of it. But I'm talking about as a man to other men. So we live in a watershed time. in a very difficult time. And Christ did it. He can do it. He's the God. He's the Creator. But we have to watch what we're doing. And we have to protect our sisters in Christ. And these are the things that I just want to share with you. And again, dealing with the Samaritan woman, the story of the Samaritan woman. Anybody has anything, this is open for discussion. I know, I have 15 more minutes.
You're good.
Anything you guys want to talk about? Questions?
Thank you.
Ladies, you're quiet. No question.
They're dying to ask questions.
I know.
Thank you, Rams.
All right.
Thank you.
Man.
I thought something was there with that, and thank you, Father, for bringing us here today. Thank you for giving us your promise that if 2 or 3 gather, there you will be in the midst. Thank you for